Okay, welcome students. This video will help you better understand how to take a scatter plot and draw your line of best fit, find your two ordered pairs from a couple of lattice points, and find the slope, and from the slope to find the y-intercept, and then finally come up with an equation that meets the line. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so we can look at this a little bit better. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to look at that scatter point without a line here. Let me go ahead and erase that so you can see that. So that's what the scatter plot, you want to use a straight edge to make sure you get it nice and straight. And remember that it can't be nonlinear. Now remember, nonlinear is one that has a J motion or a hockey stick motion, either going up from the right or coming down from the left. And this may have a slight one, but it's not that pronounced. So it's really fine to presume that this is a negative slope. So remember, no correlation is where you can't tell if it's positive or negative. So we want a positive correlation or a negative correlation, and this happens to be negative. So the next thing you want to do is go ahead and draw your line of best fit. And so we go ahead and do that. And make sure that you use a straight edge to do that. Next thing you have to do is you go along your line here. Let me zoom in on that. And then you want to pick two lattice points. And if you're careful when you draw your line of best fit, you should make sure as you draw it that you at least pick up two lattice points. And you see I have a lattice point there, and a lattice point is where a point hits right where my cursor is at. So right there, that line hits on the point 1 and 13. So I go ahead and mark that, and I come down here and I can see it's on 12 and 2. So I mark those 2 points, and then from those 2 points I'll go ahead and find my slope. So let's move over here to this other side of the screen. So again, we decide if the correlation for the line of best fit, if it's nonlinear or no correlation, we can't do it. It needs to be positive or negative correlation, and so this fits. We draw our line of best fit, use a straight edge, and then we picked off our 2 lattice points, which is 1 and 13 and 2 and 12. Now the next thing we have to do is find the slope, and I know in the homework that we did, there was a complicated formula that I was trying to get students to use, and it was just too hard. So we're going to default back to the way we did this in December. So you write one ordered pair over the other ordered pair, and then you look at the change from 13 to 2. So 13 to 2, you can see that I go down by 11, and from 1 to 2 I go up by 11. Now remember, you do the x over the y's. The y changes by a negative 11. The x is changed by a positive 11, so I write those over each other. And make sure you change it to a decimal. And we kind of lucked out on this problem because it turned out to be a negative 1. Sometimes it'll be like 0.75, it'll be a decimal of some kind, and it's fine to use a decimal. There's nothing wrong with that. And we just kind of lucked out to where it was an integer. The next thing we have to do in step 5 is we have to find the y-intercept. Now to find the y-intercept, I'm going to use the equation y minus mx equals b. I know on one of my points here, I'm going to use the point 12 and 2. The y part of this ordered pair is 2, so I'm going to put it in for y. The slope is over here, was a negative 1. So I'm going to put a negative 1 in for the slope, and then my x value for the ordered pair that I'm using is 12. And you can use either one of your lattice points. It doesn't matter which one you use. Either one will work. So I used the second lattice point that I found at 12 and 2. So now you put this in your calculator. Don't do this in your head. So to subtract, I use my white negative key there, and then I use my x value. So y was 2, subtract a negative 1 from the slope, and then in parentheses I have my x value, which is 12. I put that on my calculator, and I get 14 for my y-intercept. Now at this point, when you find your y-intercept, here you can do a quick check. So if I go back and look at my graph, you see that y-intercept is right at 14. So if your y-intercept, maybe it was supposed to be 14.1 or something like that, but 14 is really close. So any y-intercept that I would have between 14 and 15, that would probably be pretty acceptable and would be okay for a line of best fit, estimating that equation for that line of best fit. Okay, let's go back down here. Now to write the equation, we're going to use the slope-intercept form of a line. So we have y equals mx plus b. We're going to replace the slope with a -1 that we found on step, I think it was 4. And then we have the y-intercept, which is 14. So this is the equation that matches our line of best fit. That's the equation, which is y equals the -1x plus 14. Now the last thing I want you to do, and this will be the same thing for the quiz, we're just going to always use x equals a -20 to evaluate our equation. And I think you remember from the time where we did functions, how to evaluate an equation. We just put the value for x into the equation or into the function, and we put it in our calculator, and out comes the y value. So for this one, when x equals 20, so -20 plus 14 gives me a -6. So when x is 20, y is a -6. And again, for all of our problems that we're doing, we're going to use x equals 20. So that's this video for right now, and I hope this helps you out. I would watch it a couple of times and try to follow it as you do one of the problems from the worksheet. And thanks for watching, and have a good evening.